They say the truth always slips through the cracks, and for years there were voices calling Will Smith arrogant, fake, even a twat, long before the world saw him lose control on live television. But when that slap landed on Chris Rock's face, it wasn't just a joke cut short. It was the collapse of an image built over decades. The Academy ban, the Frozen projects, the fall from grace, it all spiraled fast. Yet the real question remains, was this Will Smith's ultimate downfall, or just the moment his carefully hidden flaws finally caught up to him? Imagine being handed the biggest trophy of your career, the one moment you've probably dreamed about since day one, and before your hand even touches it, the world already sees you as the villain. That's what happened to Will Smith on Oscar night in 2022. The night should have been the clean ending to his underdog story. The sitcom star who beat the odds, took over the box office, and now earned the title of Best Actor. Instead, it turned into the night that everyone stopped seeing The Fresh Prince and started questioning who Will really was. The setup was classic Oscars glitz. Cameras everywhere, A-list stars in the front rows, the kind of night designed to be remembered for glamorous reasons. Will was nominated for his role in King Richard, the crowning achievement of playing a real-life father who pushed his daughters Serena and Venus into tennis history. Everything was set up for a legacy moment, but only minutes before that trophy reached his hands, a single joke would flip the tone of the night completely. Chris Rock, standing at the mic, made the comment about Jada Pinkett Smith and her shaved hair. It seemed like one of those easy throwaway lines, except it wasn't, because the world quickly learned Jada's look was tied to alopecia. That's when the chaos started. Will walked onto the stage in front of millions watching live and slapped Rock across the face. The sound alone was enough to shock people, but it was Will's face on camera afterward, his anger visible, that burned into people's minds. The crowd went silent. Some thought it was scripted, some laughed nervously, but then it became clear this wasn't a bit. The unedited broadcast overseas showed Will yelling from his seat, and once clips made their way to Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, it was unavoidable. Within seconds, people from Tokyo to Toronto were glued to their phones, replaying the moment and arguing about what they'd just seen. Just imagine the weird contrast inside that theater. On one side of the night, you had the Dolby Theater erupting in applause when his name was called for Best Actor. On the other side, outside those walls, people online were already calling his career done. That disconnect is what made it so surreal, because history books will record him winning the Academy's top prize, but memory will always put the slap first. The questions came instantly. Was this a single loss of control, or had the charming Fresh Prince we all grew up with just slipped off a mask for the first time? People who idolized him couldn't believe what they just saw. Overnight, timeline after timeline got clogged with memes, video edits, commentary, and hot takes. Media outlets used words like villain and scandal, turning what should have been a shining moment of recognition into a sensation that drowned out everything good about the night. And if anyone thought his tearful acceptance speech would soften the blow, it didn't. If anything, it made people more divided. Some fans saw a broken man trying to explain himself, while critics argued it was manipulative, like he was playing another role instead of owning up to the chaos he caused. That speech became its own flashpoint, fueling even more anger and confusion. All of it boiled down to a 90-second meltdown that cracked open 3 decades of carefully polished reputation. One moment he was the lovable movie star you'd bring home to your parents. The next, he was the Hollywood cautionary tale. And while the room was still buzzing with disbelief, the industry was already deciding behind the scenes how to treat him from that night forward. What happens to an A-lister when Hollywood itself stops believing in him? That became the exact question hanging over Will Smith in the weeks after the Oscars slap. The industry moved so fast it felt like whiplash. He resigned from the Academy, giving up his say in who wins future awards, but kept that trophy for King Richard. Then came the hammer drop, a ban from all Academy events for a full decade. 10 years. That's longer than some actors' entire careers. And for somebody who once defined the Oscars red carpet, it was a brutal sign of just how serious the Academy wanted to look. The punishment wasn't just on paper. It started spreading out into his career almost immediately. Netflix quietly shelved Fast and Loose, the action thriller he had lined up. That movie had been talked about as a big play for him post-Oscars, and now it was simply gone. Sony hit pause on Bad Boys 4, which hurt even more, because the franchise has always been one of his safest bets with audiences. Brands that used to chase him pulled back without saying much publicly, but the silence spoke volumes. The message was clear: attaching Will Smith to a project suddenly looked like bad business. This was the same guy who, for 2 decades, had the cleanest reputation for making money in Hollywood. He was the one parents trusted in family blockbusters, and teenagers adored in sci-fi spectacles. Almost overnight, the man who had been the safest investment got treated like radioactive material. Studios didn't just worry about his movies failing, they worried about his very name dragging down their own reputations. That sort of shift is rare and brutal, especially for someone still at the top of their game. And if you looked at the media coverage, it matched the industry freeze. Before the Oscars, every article about him was a career retrospective, how he conquered TV, then music, then film. After the slap, those same outlets couldn't stop asking, is he permanently canceled? The phrase came up everywhere. Crisis PR experts were split right down the middle. Some insiders said he had committed career suicide, pointing out that Hollywood loves redemption stories, but not ones that embarrass the entire industry on live TV. Others insisted this was a setback but survivable, that fans have short memories, and that his star power couldn't just vanish. The fact that no one agreed only made it clear how unpredictable his comeback chances looked. At the exact same time, his personal life began to spill into the story. Reports about strains in his marriage to Jada started getting more attention. Interviews from past years were pulled up and dissected online. These weren't new issues, but thrown into the middle of the scandal, they gave the sense that his whole world was unstable. It became harder for him to focus on shaping a narrative when gossip about his private struggles kept feeding the same cycle. Suddenly, fans weren't just talking about his career, they were debating whether his own household was falling apart, which only deepened the perception that things were out of control. The numbers told their own story too. His family's foundation lost more than 80% of its revenue and eventually shut down. Then the release of Emancipation came and went with barely any fanfare. A Will Smith drama, once an event, barely made a dent. That would have been unthinkable before. Even his freestyle rap appearance got trashed online, people calling it a midlife crisis rather than a bold comeback. Every move he made was scrutinized, mocked, or ignored, pulling him further away from the aura he had built for 30 years. What froze first? Movies like Fast and Loose and Bad Boys 4. What collapsed right after? His goodwill, his awards season spotlight, even his charity. The speed of that collapse showed how fragile Hollywood loyalty really is once an image cracks. But the bigger question became whether this freefall marked the permanent end of his reign or the beginning of a much longer fight to win back respect. The slap wasn't just one mistake, it was the kind of moment that flipped Will Smith from a beloved figure into a symbol of downfall in less than 2 minutes. For decades he was trusted, funny, bankable, then in one strike that entire persona shattered right in front of millions. Fame showed itself as fragile, decades of work undone in seconds. And now, the real question hangs over everything. Can his redemption efforts erase those 90 seconds, or is the memory stronger than any apology, any new movie, any comeback tour? That's the legacy he's trapped wrestling with forever.